Everybody's recording. Alright, so... Feels like there's not enough light on me. Haha. Wow. Well, we'll see. Hello and welcome to my funeral, part 4. This week I was going to talk about strange social trends that are emerging or being rediscovered. I don't know, I was just talking to a friend, Nick Harper. I should put a link to his business. He has a great series called Let's Art. He's a musician, or he was, or will be again. He's also a talented technologist, electrical engineer, 3D animator, many things. He comes from the school of thought that it'd be nice to keep most of his life private except for the key, highest quality pieces of art or inventions that are worth sharing with people. This makes me think of Tool, the band, and Nine Inch Nails, and other bands that cultivated a certain mystique and weren't as interested in interviews. Why should we care what they think about the latest political candidate? Just listen to their music. I see that as an old-timer way of thinking. And then I see myself, I thought was pretty progressive. I'm more like, I think of like 30-somethings who are interested in sharing a lot about themselves. I'm not so concerned with privacy. I don't mind telling you about my gross personal medical problems. It's an interesting story. Who cares? We're all going to die. Doesn't really bother me talking honestly and openly about things. But I still like the idea of doing one of these vlogs once a week or once every couple weeks. I don't want to do them every night or constantly. And yet, now I've learned of the next generation, maybe even just the 20-somethings. Maybe there is another generation right after them that I haven't even heard of yet and don't understand at all. But I was listening to a podcast by Kent Bai, who apparently is quite the emergent figure in the VR scene, and he was interviewing a young lady about Snapchat and that culture. And I assume Kent is at my speed. He's eager to share a lot of himself. He does a reoccurring podcast, but he probably likes to cultivate the best bits that he can think of into a processed blast of goods. Whereas the lady he was interviewing uses Snapchat, and I don't use Snapchat, but apparently kind of the idea of Snapchat is that you just kind of share video with anybody around you all the time. And it's more, there's no scripting, there's no forethought. I have some notes about what I might talk about this week. Nothing that in Snapchat, it's just you're going. But you still have the ability to save good things. You have 24 hours to decide if you want to save Snapchat. So there's some cultivation after the fact. It's a different approach. And I'm rambling. So it just really struck me that that's weird. What the young girl said was that she was totally cool with having filters on Snapchat that would clear up her acne or make her eyes slightly bigger. It's just like makeup. And so that really weirded me out because I don't really believe in makeup. I think of that as a falsehood. I wish women didn't feel the need to wear makeup or shave their legs because that's not who they really are. Why not just be the animal that you are? And what struck me was, is this a generational difference in social interests? Is Nick part of an older generation, even though he's a little younger than me? Am I part of the 30-somethings, and is this girl locked in the 20-somethings or high school students? Or are these just different strata of social approaches that will emerge? Is Snapchat going to get accepted, and instead of it being for young people, maybe there'll be just 3 different personality types, and people will naturally sort themselves out into what they prefer. Some people aren't going to be great on Snapchat. They're not going to be great improvisers. They may gravitate towards cultivation. And other people may find a way to use Snapchat, or they may find a way to just put out the best of themselves and or just be private, not share any of it. So I'm curious if this is generational gap things happening, or if this is just a way of technology helping us sort out different types of people, different types of social approaches that are just psychology. Yeah. Anyway. I thought there was going to be more interesting meat there, but I'm forgetting the points I was thinking of making. I think I was going to rant about authenticity. That was where I was going with that. I feel like each of these three different approaches to communicating with other human beings are all striving for authenticity. The guy, frontman of Tool, isn't interested in playing the game. Arguably, I don't know what his deal is, but Nick arguably would rather just share his art, and this is his pure art. I'm interested in doing a vlog and being honest about it, but I still will try to plan some kind of entertainment. And the kid who's recording everything and chooses that today's random rant is the one to save. There's this, each person seems to be striving for their version of authenticity. So it's kind of weird that maybe we as human beings all gravitate towards that, just have different ideas of how to get there, different flavors of what we think is the best path towards authenticity. I don't know. Part of me is like, this would be fun to discuss. This is why I need to start having people on the show, on the funeral, if you will. Not a good face. Also was going to rant about VR, so maybe I'll jump into talking about tech. I'm going to attempt to talk about a variety of things really briefly. So the first one is VR, social VR experiences. Recently I used the GearVR to go into Oculus Social and get a reflection. And so in Oculus Social, basically you have kind of a, I don't know, Jack sort of a trivia game. And it felt like I was seated around a poker table with some strangers. And as I joined, it said, do you really want to take part in the game? And I was like, no, I'm just here snooping. I'm lurking, if you will, in this forum. So choosing no, it put me in, and I looked and I saw cartoon faces. You can kind of choose your 3D avatar head. A trivia question is up on the screen, and they're all voting on it, apparently. And some friendly fella turns to me, and I see his, like, Animal Crossing cartoon dog head turn right at me. And I see circles emit from his mouth as he's talking, and it was very clear that he is looking at me and talking to me, and he says, hey, Warren, you chose not to take part, man. You gotta exit and come back if you want to jump in on the question. I was like, oh, thanks. And I wanted to say, like, oh, you can hear me? What? And so it was a very strange experience where I thought I was going to quietly lurk and see how this thing functions before I took part, but I was in there taking part, and it kind of spooked me. So I quit and bailed, but man, it was really interesting. It felt like something out of The Shining. I felt like I was peeking into someone's hotel room, and then the dog puppet mask turned and looked at me, and I was suddenly involved in whatever the hell crazy ritual they were doing. So it was tantalizing. And now a game just came out called Pool VR or something, and using the Vive controllers, you can hang out in like a sleazy bar and play pool with some random stranger. It reminds me a lot of Snapchat. And I'm curious why this is an emerging social thing. I am used to the world of playing games with my friends on Steam from my friends list, like my old college buddies. Let's get together and chat while we play Team Fortress 2 or Left 4 Dead. I'm not used to jumping in with some strangers and just trying to make up conversation. Maybe that's why people go to bars, just a random social practice. But I'm not sure if that's what it is or if it's Snapchat, whatever the hell that is. But it's interesting, random social connections. I don't know, it's not much of a tech idea or anything, but that's some technology, and I'm talking about it. Jumped in and played some Minecraft in GearVR, which I bought just to see if it was cooler than it had been in the past for me, and the answer is no. It was kind of dumb. There's an experience where you're in a living room watching Minecraft on a, like, picture frame. I guess it's meant to be a TV, but a huge TV that takes up most of your view when you're looking in one direction. And when you're comfortable, you can press a button to shift into it, and now you're surrounded by the Minecraft world, so it's immersive. That was interesting. I had most fun going back and forth between those two and marveling at the weirdness of it, of the transition. But mostly, when you're in there, you're playing Minecraft, which is a game I don't get. I'm digging holes. I guess I'm going to gather resources. Spent some time trying to figure out the buttons to combine things and try to... I mean, I never really got that game. But the verdict for now is that it's not, like, dramatically new, which is maybe good for people that already like Minecraft. Just not exciting for people that have always been a little skeptical. Maybe I should talk about my history with Minecraft to establish my cred, but I'm not going to do that. Played it a long time ago. Oh, I couldn't resist. Played it back when it was early beta. I'm gonna stop. So, I don't know what else. I went to a website that offers GearVR Porn. I was like, what do you got? What's this about? And they had a free sample, and I downloaded it. And what it does is it puts, instead of a 360 video, they do a 180 degree video. So I downloaded their little sample and put it on the phone and loaded it up in some JauntVR, whatever it was, some viewer that'll open it. And it was weird. I wondered, why would you only do 180 degrees? Why not 360? And I think it's actually because they want to preserve the resolution of the video. When you do a 360 video, it starts getting so crazy huge that it's hard to edit. You start getting multi-gigabyte files just for a minute or two of video. And so maybe the idea of 180 is that you can get more image out of that same high resolution, so it's crisper instead of being kind of a blurry mess. It certainly calls into question where you're placing someone's perspective with the camera, because it's interesting to sit there and see someone's boobies right in your face, but it's not like reality. It's like being in a weird Disneyland funhouse where maybe you're 2 feet tall, but you're having sex with an 80-foot tall woman. I don't know. And I didn't feel like I was having sex. I felt like I was a camera on somebody's belly, except I couldn't look around to see whose belly I was on. All I could see was the weird, gigantic thing in front of me that was assaulting me. And it was weird. Anyway, had a talk with some friends at work about the nature of perversion and how Snapchat started off as people sending dick pics to their friends in high school, because the nature of Snapchat is there's no permanence, so you can get away with some wild and crazy business because it's not recorded unless you want it to be. And apparently it's evolved beyond that now, but I don't know. So it came up like, if aliens contacted humans, you'd hope they didn't contact any of these freaks who are sending dick pics on Snapchat, because that would be bad for the first contact experience. Which had me thinking, like, it'd be interesting to have a story about aliens contacting every single human being on Earth at the exact same time. Like, who's to say they wouldn't have that technology? And I just imagine our leaders scrambling to try to tell everybody to, like, try to make it look good, try to not make the human race look too filthy, try to not initiate, put off the initiating of sending dick pics for as long as possible. Which wouldn't be that long. And I was talking to a friend who pointed out, who's to say that aliens wouldn't show up and be like, welcome, where are the dick pics? Sketchfab, telepresence, bots, Doom. I don't know, maybe I should just let it roll there with that. Still, because that all seems sort of connected to the weirdness of Snapchat. Can't resist tagging on one tag, which is Doom. So I'm going to try to slip this in, even though I shouldn't. Quick thought about Doom, the video game. They recently released a reboot of the whole Doom series, and a lot of people are raving about it. It went really well for them. Bethesda? Who the hell was this? Same people that did Fallout 4. Some goddamn publisher bought id. And they put out the new Doom, and a lot of people are saying, wow, it's a return to the original Doom that we all know and love. It really nailed it. But whenever I see videos, I'm like, it looks like realistic pipes. It looks like Doom 3. It doesn't look like Doom to me. And I hear like, oh, there's no cover and you gotta keep moving fast. I'm like, I don't know if that's what I loved about the original Doom. So I'm having this weird moment where I'm feeling kind of alone, but I know that a gazillion, if you will, people played Doom, so they can't all agree on anything. But there's probably a lot in my camp who feel like there was something else that dragged them into the original Doom experience. And so I've been trying to put my finger on it. And what I'm thinking is, if you study film, there's different, and art. There's like expressionist art and paintings and impressionist. And these aren't things that we talk about with video games yet, but I assume that we might. And something that's really cool to me about the original Doom is how it doesn't obey the rules of reality. There's no construction, there's no supports necessary. You can walk down this corridor with weird spidery walkways that would never support your weight. You can take a right and suddenly there's green slime on the floor. Why would anybody put this green slime there? I'm not thinking about that. I really don't care about the reality of it, because to me it's like an expressionist movie. It's like being in a dream. I'm more dazzled by the weirdness and the surreal nature of what's being thrown in my face. The next level starts and I see a giant chasm and there's critters on the far side shooting fireballs at me that are slowly coming. Cool. I don't care why there's a chasm. I'm lost in the drama or the experience, the impressions of the moment. On the next level, there's barrels that are clearly, if I shoot them, will follow a chain and a puzzle will unlock. So it's kind of fun to wonder who put these things there. And it's not like everyone agrees Doom doesn't need a story, but that to me, that's the story. It's kind of like environmental storytelling. But that's what excited me about the original Doom. I was always excited to get into some new environment and kind of basically let the level designers' weird ideas and randomness wash over me. And it was also fun moment to moment. Whereas Doom 3 tried to write a story and establish a reality, in that game, all I remember is finding some goddamn key cards to open some goddamn doors, to turn on some power, to turn on a satellite, and then I had to backtrack and find power to turn on a train, to get to a key card, to turn on the satellite, and it's just like, who cares, man? What was exciting was demons are attacking, and now I'm in slime, and now I'm in the intestines of something, I don't know what it is, and now there's crates, and now there's a burnt out, weird, charred white forest, and now I'm in hell. The constant surreal nature of it was rad, and I doubt that's in the new Doom game. They'll probably say, perhaps when you go to hell, then it'll be neat, but I'm not excited about playing through a bunch of bullshit to get to hell. I've heard that's a little repetitive, and you keep walking through pipey environments where you're attacked from all sides by things, and it makes me lament. It feels like they went for a cohesive level backbone instead of having maybe a dozen different level designers just go in completely different directions. And I think maybe the original Doom feels like a collection of short stories instead of like one 60-hour endless movie, or, you know. Anyway, So I just want to mention that. I don't know. It'd be neat if I had a big button to put on that, but debating if I should buy that new Doom game, and I'm going to buy it. Whatever. So I went and saw The Nice Guys, Shane Black's new movie. It's the genius, if I may. This is the fellow that made Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and supposedly he wrote Lethal Weapon, who was famous in the 80s for making all this money off spec scripts, scripts nobody really asked for. He just wrote them, and original stories. That's exciting. If you follow a lot of dialogue about modern screenwriting or movie making, it's that everything is derivative. Everything is based on a book or a remake of some old known TV show or old movie. And so I'm excited that they let Shane Black just do an original story. The Nice Guys is kind of inspired by old detective novels, apparently, but it's like Tarantino. It's a mishmash of hundreds of influences instead of directly messing with a story that, you know, probably worked as it was. I don't know, though. I haven't seen any reviews that mention if he directly ripped off some story. Tangent. So, just want to say it's a great movie, but what really struck me about it was the way every scene was like a puzzle in this movie. Every scene, I'm interested in, there's like a setup, and I'm curious where the scene is going to go. There was no scene where I felt like, we're spinning wheels to make the movie longer, or we're just doing some action because it's been a while. That may have happened, but I didn't feel it. I was constantly engaged. And it kind of reminded me of like a stand-up comedian or something. The movie's filled with humor, but something really fascinating about the movie making there. It was a series of awesome things. You hear about people writing superhero movies will often say, first thing I did was I said, what do I want to see Wonder Woman do? I want to see her ride a unicorn, stomp out a god, eat lightning. And then they try to write a movie that is filled with generic bullshit that will support those few random moments they came up with, they really wanted to see. The Nice Guys feels like it's just a series of awesome moments. And there is no filler. It's 100 awesome moments instead of 3. I don't know. Just so much to love there. Maybe the effects were a little weak. So it's kind of got cult movie written all over it because it's kind of perfect for what it is, but not super broad. Not going to appeal to everyone, I assume. Anyway, if you can, look up the Red Band trailer with some profanity-filled music in the background. It does a great job of spoiling some of the parts of the movie, but also really capturing the real flavor and feel of it, which hasn't come through in most of the trailers, which kind of try to appeal to the main actors or a broad audience, when it's really kind of an angry, unhappy movie about broken people in a delicious private detective, hard-boiled kind of narrative. Anyway, we'll see it. It's also something kind of unique about the Shane Black approach to movies is he often sets up what you know is going to happen and then subverts it. I think he famously did Lethal Weapon 2, I believe. They jumped off a balcony. Oh my god, you're going to die. And they landed in a pool. Boom. I believe that was the first time they'd done that. I should check that. But It was delicious. And then it's been done a million times since then. And in The Nice Guys, there's definitely a moment where they jump off, they fall off a building, and there's a pool, and you know they're going to make it, and they put a fun twist on it, where one guy does and one guy doesn't. Not a huge, great example, but it's nice that there's no part where you feel like I've seen that before. I know what's going to happen here. Even that pool jump, I'd seen that before, but it didn't play out like I'd seen or expected. There was some other movie, The Other Guys, where they jumped off a building, spoiler, in the first 5 minutes. Our heroes are such badasses, they just jump off a building to catch a bad guy and immediately die. And that's the gag, is like jumping off buildings doesn't work. And so there's something weird in The Nice Guys where I don't feel like they logicked out a half and half, but man, it really felt like this awesome moment that I hadn't really seen before, but still was a twist on things I'd seen a million times. I don't know, some weird alchemy there. I don't know, I feel like I was going to talk more about that, but didn't quite get to whatever levels. Wow, 28 minutes. Fuck, it's already too long. I don't know, I was going to babble about X-Men Apocalypse, because I saw it as well. And a lot of people tearing that movie apart, and probably rightly so. I'm a big fan of Bryan Singer, so I'm bummed that maybe one of the first movies of his since Valkyrie, maybe, that kind of left me cold and made me wonder why they made the movie. Even Valkyrie has a plot at least to fall back on, whereas X-Men Apocalypse is basically building to a boss fight for no discernible reason. It felt like they cut the plot out of the movie. I should stare into the lens when I'm talking. That'd be too creepy. What really struck me about X-Men Apocalypse, just to jump right into a spoiler thing, just to get to it. And this is me trying to record kind of like how I would have done it differently and I think would have improved the movie, because that's fun for me to talk about movies that way. In theory, the only unique thing I can really bring to the table is my idea on how I would have done it. It's cheap and easy in this vlog environment. There's I think, worst part of the movie, arguably, where Apocalypse has, the thousands of year old, super powerful god type, wakes up in modern times and needs to learn about our culture. Here's a scene we've seen a million times. And they don't really have an innovative solution. He doesn't do anything cool. He walks over to a TV in the 80s and touches it. And somebody says, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I'm learning." And then the TV channels change, which kind of echoes a stupid mutant power from earlier in the X-Men movies, where a kid could blink his eyes to change the TV channels, maybe. Maybe it wasn't a reference. Anyway, somehow they cut from the TV channels changing from a cool Star Trek episode to like the news of the 80s. And Storm is watching, and she's like, "Oh my god, you changed the channel with your finger. What? That doesn't make any sense." And then they cut to satellites. You see some satellites on the roofs of building. And it looks like modern DirecTV satellites. But I don't believe they had any of this shit in the 80s. And so it was a really weird moment where they're kind of suggesting that he's connecting to the world's network of information. But I was also drawn out like, this is not how shit worked back in the early 80s. What? Are they really doing this? And it just seemed to me like the dumbest way to handle that. They fell back on existing tropes. It just seemed like the worst way to do that cliche thing we've seen a million times. It definitely felt like lazy, how do you call it, just checked out filmmaking of like, I need this to happen. I don't want to think about it too much or invent a new exciting way to do it. So it happens. He just touches a TV and goddamn it, he learns everything. Stop asking me to write. So what would be cooler is if he had seen the TV and been like, ooh, and then taken it apart. And I've often thought that we reached a point where people love TVs, but nobody could build a TV from scratch. It's like this level of technology that we've all taken for granted for 100 years now. I don't know, 80 years. And yet it's something that baffles most people. They don't have the science skills to build a TV from scratch. If they were sent back in time, they couldn't do it. So some ancient old timer wakes up, sees a TV. It'd be cool if instead of magically accessing the world's knowledge, if he just was like, oh, this is nice, and he took the TV apart and laid it out and instantly understood it. I think we would respect that on some level, because we can't do that. He's a smart cookie. And he could find some other goddamn way to figure out what's going on in the world so he'd know to go talk to Mystique. Anyway. But the idea is that you could pay this off. There's some reoccurring theme of Apocalypse is he encounters mutants and upgrades them, gives them special superpowers. I think they must have originally had a plot where he was going to make the strong stronger and that was going to be the point of the movie, because they keep putting, like, taglines for the marketing is only the strongest will survive, and in the comics that's kind of his thing. This Darwinian approach to a villain. Anyway, it doesn't, I don't know, the movie doesn't go there, but for example, he goes to see Warren Worthington, who personally, I always enjoyed the Angel character because he was a rich guy named Warren. And so they've reinvented him for this movie for some goddamn reason. He has spiky wing, claw wings so he can cut people, which is neat because he is probably the lamest of the X-Men because he just had soft, fluffy wings to let him fly, which is mostly useless. Instead, now he's a badass German pit fighter. Here's a quick tangent. He and Nightcrawler fight. Nightcrawler damages his wings, so he gets drunk and gives up on life. And at the end of the movie, they have a rematch. They meet up again, and it should have been a big emotional moment. But instead, they don't even say a word. They just start fighting, and then the movie just moves on. That really weirded me out. Was there bad performance they cut out there? Did they think it was enough, and we'd connect the dots that it was their rematch in a big dramatic moment? Something failed there, and it just feels to me like either for running time or bad performances, they decided to cut out whatever dialogue would have brought it to your attention, like, let's fight again, but now there's no safety bars on the cage, it'll burn my damn wings. I don't know. My point is, if he had taken apart this TV and instantly learned our technology, or was excited by the technology of the 80s, which somehow seems like a very 80s thing to me, being excited by primitive technology. There's also a weirdness where maybe it's an 80s, maybe it's an 80s reference to Tron or something. The start of the movie is in Egypt, and they're in Egyptian shit, which you've seen a lot. It's kind of a cliche again. But what's neat is, for whatever reason, it's like Tron Egypt. It's Egyptian hieroglyphs that glow with bright yellow lines all over them. And I couldn't describe it any better than Tron Egypt. Which at the time seemed really lame and dumb to me. It's some weird reference to gods of Egypt or something. What is happening? But it occurs to me it's kind of a rad 80s thing to just put Tron on some other shit happening in your movie because Tron was big in the 80s. Maybe I'm not appreciating some cool filmmaking reference. Maybe. It's a weird face. Anyway, had he taken apart the television and instantly learned our technology because he's so rad, you could have then had a better scene where he encountered Warren Worthington, the Angel, and fixed his wings, as he does in the movie. But instead of fixing him immediately into the Archangel with all of his metal shit, he could have just fixed his wings and been like, there you go, buddy. And then he could have been like, hold on a moment, and established that he has kind of an interest in our modern technology. And so just for fun, for shits and giggles, he upgrades him to look more like the TV inner parts, and that's why Angel becomes a weird mechanical creature with metal wings. He helps him upgrade. That would have been a cool way to kind of tie into how he was learning about our technology and connecting to the world and connecting to the world of the 80s and the best that technology had to offer in the 80s. In theory, he could have been more involved in the Weapon X thing with Wolverine covered in weird technology shit. Instead of the whole Wolverine thing being this bizarre tangent in the movie that didn't go anywhere. I don't know. I've read that Wolverine was originally written to take over the team and kind of lead them in a military direction. And I guess it would have been cool to see him come out of the Weapon X state, not as a feral animal, but as an angry as hell military guy ready to lead the X-Men. It would have been a fun bit of business, but instead they wanted Jennifer Lawrence to be Mystique and be the leader for bizarrely wrong for her character. Anyway, so in the end, the movie has way too much Mystique doing things that don't make sense for Mystique, and there's a weird 20-minute sequence with Wolverine being rad that has no importance to the rest of the movie. Oh well. Anyway, I don't know. If there's any takeaway there, it's that filmmaking is hard and a big collaboration, and I wouldn't blame the screenwriters and say it's a shitty script. I would say, like, clearly things happened during the making of this movie that derailed it pretty hard. So despite all its flaws, I don't know, X-Men was a fun boss fight. There's some fun action. There's some really interesting moments sprinkled into an otherwise kind of pointless mess of a story that doesn't really pay off at all, as far as I could tell. I also feel like there was maybe some trend of establishing the new timeline, which doesn't sound very exciting, but there's a line-for-line repeat of Charles and Magneto discussing the school. Exactly the same lines they had in the first X-Men movie, however many, almost 30 years ago. I don't know, maybe 20 years ago. And one wonders why you would waste time repeating line for line, but maybe the point was, we're establishing this is the new standard. This is the school, this is the time, and these are the characters. So claiming it kind of for a new generation who would later watch older movies and be like, they said those lines that were in my favorite of the X-Men movies, Apocalypse. I don't know. Weird. I don't know, on some level time will tell, but for now it's like probably my least favorite of the X-Men movies. Although the X-Men Last Stand is balls, the worst made movie. It went to some weird places. It was great to see the Dark Phoenix business. I don't know. Fuck that movie too. Fuck those movies. Weird. Anyway, moving on. Book-wise, I was going to say I finished Ready Player One. It really struck me as like a nostalgia vlog, much like this, if I just babbled about everything I could remember from the 80s. Instantly, the book references Heathers and Oingo Boingo in the first 3 pages, so I was immediately like, holy shit, this book is about me. And I also, there's a very personal moment where they talk about Ultraman. Ultraman was a big deal to me as a kid, because growing up in the mountains, the Redwood Forest outside Boulder Creek, down in California, we had a TV that didn't get reception all the time. And like a shitty satellite antenna thing would get reception sometimes through the trees and whatever magic delivered the television. And so I'd often miss the cool Saturday morning cartoons, or I would catch the very end of Thundar and be like, this is the greatest show ever. When will I ever watch a full episode? And I'd always get a good viewing of Ultraman, which I assume was just weirdly English dubbed rehashes of whatever. I don't know what the fuck was going on. I remember a lot of Ultraman, and I did not like it, but I enjoyed the weird rubbery fighting and bizarreness of it, and would half pay attention to it. And somehow, that's probably the TV show I watched the most as a kid, or got the most of. That ever maybe watching an episode front to back, or understanding what was happening. I just happened to have it on more than anything else, when I was desperately trying to absorb television and rot my brains. Anyway, so there's Ultraman in the Ready Player One book. That's another 80s reference, and I feel like I don't know what else to say about that book. The structure feels cliche. They do kill somebody at some point, and it feels like a formulaic, now it's legit. The whole thing felt like a young adult novel. Kind of lightweight and set up to be enjoyable to everybody. There was no part where I was like, this guy's a weirdo writer. How dare he? Whatever. If I was given a star system, should I do that? I don't do that. I'd give it 3 out of 5. It's a C grade, wasn't offensive. Right now there's some stuff going on where Speilberg is talking about how 360 video or just VR is dangerous. A lot of people are freaking out about Spielberg being short-sighted or something. It's like, how can people say this guy's fucking genius? And I think they're just taking his quote out of context. I think he's just being a friendly Hollywood wheeler and dealer who's pointing out that something is dangerous is sort of hyperbole. I don't think he's in any way afraid of the audience controlling the experience. He's just saying it's not for him, and he thinks it's going to be weird and difficult for people. Whatever. I don't know. People should chill the fuck out about that. But my point is, if we're lucky, he'll make his point with Ready Player One, which is about VR, ostensibly. And maybe there'll be some takeaways. I don't know. And if we were really lucky, he would make Ready Player One as a 360-degree video, start to finish. It'd be incredible. Or he'd make it a VR experience, start to finish, and just say, I did it. I did the first one. But instead, we'll probably get what we're getting a lot of now, where it's a Hollywood movie you can pay a lot of money for, and there'll be some interesting 360-degree tie-ins. I don't know. Whatever, it's not much of a prediction. Moving on. TV shit. I got nothing to say about TV. Fuck TV. Penny Dreadful is awesome. What I was going to do is bring up something on my phone. So, here's an attempt to share what I've been doing. So here's an Android app I made and working on. This is a rough control experiment. Gosh, it's hard to talk about, but I feel that I must. The idea here is that there's a body, and there's 3 parts to it. There's a head, a main body, and a feet or legs. And each one will do something different if you touch it. And so if I drag on the feet, I can create a path of feet. It's maybe hard to see. And so the usefulness of this is that So once I hook it up, the character will walk along the path I just dragged. And you can see a little programming magic makes it so the path is always on top of whatever surface you walk across. And so the character will know to jump up there. The other thing is if you drag on the body, something else happens, and it's kind of subtle and difficult to see. But it's not dragging in the environment anymore. It's dragging in space a set distance from the camera. The same distance as the character is from the camera. So I'm kind of dragging in a plane around the character. And the twist is, if I hit the hat here, which will pause the game, it'll also turn on all the accelerometers. So I'm using them to control the camera movement. So now, whoa, I'm doing camera stuff. It's crazy. I don't know if you can see. Oh, this isn't really done either. But the idea is that you can do that and then pause it again to take a look. Now if I drag on the body again, I'm dragging in this new plane around the character. So you can create this is making a spell. That's what these white dots are. That's a spell. And so when I let go of the spell, like a fireball or whatever element is appropriate for that character, say a fireball, will trace the spell. And so the gameplay is that you will drag a path you want to walk, and you'll drag a spell you want to cast, and then you can trigger them again and again by just tapping that body part. And so you might drag a path by some guards and a spell that goes in a circle. And then as you walk past the guards, if you're lucky, your spell will make a fireball hit the guards. In theory, you can make a spell that hits guards and a spell that goes up and hits chandeliers above you. And that's the plan for this game. So this is just a shitty tech demo right now, but with my kids and everything going on, I don't have as much time as I normally would to work on this, so that's my progress. So that's an exciting report. I wish I could think of some performance way to make that more exciting. I need blood right now to pour out of my forehead. I can just be like, bah! Someday. My plan for the next week, well, my plan for last week was Illustrator, right? And webcomics. Drawing the establishing shots of my comic mean huge countrysides and tents everywhere and castles and all these establishing environmental shots that take a long time. Maybe someday I'll worry about that, but not right now. Yeah, so I said that out loud. What am I trying to say? So the webcomic, I'm excited to jump in, but I'm probably going to wait till the game is a little closer. I want to get the game to a point where I can promote it with a straight face. Hopefully have like a small trailer with my character CGI just being charming, so you're excited to see what this character can do. And maybe some concept art, and maybe the t-shirt. Something so when you go to the website, you're like, oh, what's this? I'm interested in knowing more about it. And I don't think the webcomic would achieve that. But that's the time to start worrying about bringing the webcomic in to sustain this interest. So my plan for this week is to get closer to those initial elements, and that means tracing the old image of for the t-shirt and getting that locked down, which will inform the art style of the comic. And probably working on 3D modeling Daphne in detail. What you saw there was like the crappy, I did this in an hour in Maya just to have something roughed out that wasn't a capsule collider. Anyway, so that's my plan for the week. One of those two things, I don't know. And also to become much more charming. It's not a good look. I'm also maybe try to start holding my cheeks up just all the time, like I'm always smiling. That's my plan. I've been working on this. Although it's weird. That's weird. When the teeth come out, it's weird. But I feel like walking around smiling for no reason is probably better than walking around grimacing for no reason. It's a weird thing when I walk around, I tend to smile at people by trying to lift my lips up as if that would be a smile. And I always somehow forget to lift the outer side, so I end up looking at people going... And to me, this is like... But to them, it's just this weird kind of, you exist. I don't know, weird. But theory, try to practice holding these muscles up all the time. So when I lift up, it'll become a smile. Perhaps I will stick these fingers in my face. Metal pins. God damn it. Anyway. Well, there's the farty end of the episode. Yeah, I don't know how to make a big finish. Again, blood just seems like the way to go.
silly old snake. Doesn't he know there's no such thing as a buffalo? Ice cream!
I'll kill you!
Well, no, I don't think so. Him.
You kill him?
Here.
I'll kill you!
There's no killing in this book, dear.